Yeah, so happy to have Jean, one part of St. Lucia. Appreciate you taking the time and excited to talk to you.
Pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the easiest place to start is for people who are maybe listening and haven't really heard a whole lot of St. Lucia's music. How would you describe the music you make and kind of what genre it fits into?
I feel like that's always a pretty difficult question for any artist to kind of express. I feel like we sort of don't really neatly fit into like a genre, which is maybe where some of our problems stem from, whatever. But no, I think, there's like a bit of electronic, there's definitely like a strong pop vein, but I think what a lot of people associate us with is like the 80s. Like, I was born in the 80s and the first part of my life was during the 80s, so I feel like my earliest kind of deep influences were from the 80s, like Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush, Michael Jackson, Prince, like Phil Collins, those kind of artists. So I guess the neatest way I could say it is like retro-leaning alternative pop.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Yeah, especially today, like genres, are so intertwined and so layered that I find it very hard. You get into like 30 different genres for one overarching pop umbrella.
Totally.
So,
which is cool. I mean, it's cool to be living in a time like that,
Absolutely.
Like if you listen to like I've been loving all the music that Joe's been putting out, Joe Keery.
Yeah,
and that's what I love about his records is like it's such a amalgam of all these different genres and he does them all so well, and I feel like it's the era of that, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. So born and raised in South Africa. Mm-hmm. I always like to ask, like, so music when you were a kid, what were your parents playing? What did you grow up listening to? And what's kind of like influenced you from your childhood? I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but...
Yeah, the records I remember around the house when I was growing up was definitely a lot of Fleetwood Mac. Like my mom like loved Fleetwood Mac. Like she, my mom was like a huge Fleetwood Mac fan. And I mean, that's like the main, Elton John as well, like kind of like the singer-songwriters, of the 70s and 80s. But then my dad was like, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, like all those like classic rock bands, And so there was a lot of that. But then, we also had, I don't know why or how, I've never actually asked my parents why, but like we had a lot of kind of like Italo disco records around the house. So there were just like all these, like I remember at some point I just discovered my parents' vinyl collection and just started going through it and just, because basically the record player was standing there unused because we sort of transitioned to CDs and going through all those records. And so like there was like some Italo disco, classic disco obviously, and then classic singer-songwriters, rock and roll. And then that was most of it. And then like obviously there was a bit of African music, but yes.
So your transition from South Africa into London, I believe, when you were a teenager, was that correct, or late teens?
Yeah. So it was when it was basically when I was when I finished high school in South Africa. So I went to this like boys choir school in South Africa that was sort of up in the mountains, and that was kind of where really my like love for music kind of came from in many ways. And then after that, I had 3 more years of high school, and then I went to Liverpool in England to the school called the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, and that's actually with the Wombats. I don't know if you know the band The Wombats, but we went to school together. Like they were actually 1 year below me.
Amazing.
And there was a minute where I had a band with Tord, who's the bass player of the Wombats, and we played like the same shows. And so I was in England for 4 years.
Yeah. So in England, you met your wife Patti. So you guys have been together, kind of making music for quite a long time. Over the years, how do you think that music has kind of morphed and changed as you guys have kind of grown as well?
I mean, I think, at least in terms of mine and Patti's relationship, I wish she was here. We have 2 kids, and so like someone has to take care of the kids,
Gotcha.
She, I would say in terms of our relationship of making music, I think it's become more kind of like an unspoken language. You know what I mean? Like just having done it for so long, and us just having been in a relationship for so long, like we've been together for like 23 years or something. And it just becomes like this unspoken language. Like you know, like I know when she thinks a new idea that I've come up with sucks, or when she really loves it. I know she's going to like it before I even play it for her, you know?
Right.
And, you know, and I think just in general, it's become more of like an effortless thing, you know, in some kind of sense. Like there was definitely a time when, especially when I sort of moved from England to the States, and sort of the transition from coming from South Africa, which was like, especially when I was growing up, was quite like a shielded place, you know, like it was just like emerging from apartheid and all this kind of stuff, and it was just a very weird place essentially to grow up. And then moving to England and then to America, and just kind of being bombarded by all this music that I'd never even knew existed, like, you know, My Bloody Valentine, you know, just stuff that I just had no idea about growing up in South Africa, and sort of having to play catch up for years, and kind of, in a way, like for many years, like feeling like I was constantly second guessing myself, you know, especially in like the height of like the Pitchfork era, where like it was just like this kind of very intense, like, India than now vibe, you know? But then I feel like St. Lucia was sort of born out of almost like rediscovering the, like this kind of, like the innocence of the music that I loved when I was growing up, without any kind of self-consciousness, you know? Yeah. And I think that in a way, I've gone more and more down that road. I've just gone down more the road of like what feels good, whether it's like a cool influence or not, or whether it, you know, like it's just literally, does it feel good to me? And that's sort of the only real barometer that I use. I mean, of course, it's nice when you play it for other people and they seem to like it too. But
of course, yeah. You know, you mentioned like you're making music that just kind of feels good, and you know, you guys have a new album. Forgive me if I pronounced it wrong. Fata Morgana, Dawn.
Fata Morgana, right? Dawn.
Fata Morgana. Okay.
Yeah. It is a weird word.
And I listened to it, and it does kind of just feel like that. It feels just like feel good music. Can you kind of talk to us about the story behind it and the inspiration and kind of all of the pieces coming together for it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely think this album is kind of is a bit different for us. You know, like I said, you know, I think in the past a lot of people have associated us with kind of having a lot of sort of 80s influences, but then we also had a bit of like, you know, blog house stuff going on as well, like cut copy, like there was a bit of that running through as well. But this record feels a lot more kind of, I don't know, 60s and 70s to me. Like it's a lot more of like a Beatles influence. There's a lot more of like ELO, and then a bit of a kind of like Habibi funk, like slight Middle Eastern. Like I don't know if you listen to any kind of Middle Eastern disco.
Not a ton, yeah.
But yeah, it's just, to me, it kind of evokes the sense of traveling a little bit, like a bit of like there's a bit of psychedelia in it, which hasn't always been like a strong thing that's flown through our music, but this was just a whole group of songs that were written roughly at the same time that this kind of influence came through. And it's also the first time that we've kind of featured strings so prominently, which was just, for a long time, felt like it was an impossible dream. And that's kind of why the album took so long, because then a whole bunch of magical things happened that made it suddenly possible. So it just has this kind of like, a little bit of like an orchestral pop feeling to it, with a bit of like a 70s.
Yeah, I think so. I was like kind of piggybacking off of that. My favorite song off of that album, In the Light, right? It kind of feels like, for me at least, it builds, and it just kind of like washes over you towards the end. And I don't know. I kind of fell in love with that song listening to it last night.
Thanks, man.
A little bit this morning, and definitely has that build property that I feel like you get in orchestral music a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested too. So I was reading, you guys have worked with kind of the same producer for a little bit of time, Chris Zane, who has worked with artists like, you know, Passion Pit, Mumford & Sons, obviously you guys. What's that relationship like, and how does that kind of play into when you put albums together?
Yeah, so Chris, in many ways, I mean, we've just had a great relationship with Chris for years. Like, what's amazing with him, and we sort of have transitioned. Like, he mixed a whole bunch and did additional production on our first record. We produced our second record, Matter, together, and then we took a break for an album, and then we came back together. But then he's sort of become more of like a mixer. Like, he's almost like purely mixing, but but there's also an element of production. Like I sort of use him as a sounding board, you know? So like we do most of it ourselves here at our studio, and we do some recording in New York as well with the band. But then he's just an amazing, he's like, the way I always describe him is he's like someone who just has no ego when it comes to his work. Like he obviously reaches for the highest possible level of quality with what he's doing, which is part of why I work with him. But he, anything I ask for, like, you know, there's songs that we've been through 15 rounds of revisions, you know, and, you know, maybe there's a slight tinge of him being annoyed in his voice that's like starting to emerge. Right. But in general, he's always willing to do whatever it takes to get a song, you know, to the best possible place. And I think just because we've had this relationship for so long, he, hopefully, I mean, I think he does trust that I'm not just trying to like fuck around, you know, that I'm not like just messing with him, that we're trying to push things to like the point where they feel right, you know. But some songs take one go, like one round of us sitting together and tweaking things, and some just take a lot of rounds, you know. And I'm so appreciative to have someone like him who I feel like really gets our sound, and who also, like, in many ways I have like a non-verbal communication with him on some level too, you know, like he gets it, and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great to have that kind of relationship. I feel like that, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to put together an album, so to speak. It's probably longer on some and shorter on others, but being able to, you know, have somebody you trust completely like that has to be really, you know, put your mind at ease at the end of the day, and you guys get the sound you want. And
I mean, it's huge, man. It's like it's the most key thing to have a team of people that you feel that way about. I mean, we have that with our band. Like we have the most amazing live band that we've been playing with basically since the beginning, you know, and just I mean, yeah, it is literally priceless. It's like you can't pay for that.
Yeah. So you've been making music for quite a long time, and the way it's kind of, you know, put out in the world these days is a little different than maybe when you first started. You know, feels like social media is like the way of discovery nowadays. Do you guys view? I always love asking this, like, is it a necessary evil, or is it something you kind of have grown to enjoy in terms of just like having to, you know, put on that like social media hat from time to time?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, I would say. I mean, I think we've just, you know, it's funny because like at the start of the pandemic, like at the end of 2019, going into the pandemic, we literally took a year and a half completely off social media, like nothing at all.
Right.
And it was very interesting, you know, just to experience that, you know. But then we came back and we just sort of realized, like, you kind of like you have to do it, you know. It's just, I mean, unless you're like, you know, Kevin Parker or Tame Impala, unless you're someone already huge and you can just post like when you have a big announcement, you know.
Right.
Unfortunately, the rest of us are just kind of like the water's rising, and it just feels like you're kind of like trying to, you know, reach your hand above water in some way and get someone to just pay attention to the fact that you have new music out, you know, even your own fans. Like, it just feels like the algorithm just works against you. And so I mean, it's that part of it is frustrating, but I mean, we really kind of, especially with this album, we were like, okay, let's really put invest a lot of money and time and effort into learning how to do this thing properly, and kind of try and have it that like the social media output and the videos feels like an extension of the music, you know? So, we've just been trying to like do it at some kind of level where it feels like you're actually in some way trying to make another piece of art. You know? I mean, definitely enjoy making music more than I enjoy making films, but you know, my mom was a filmmaker. She made documentaries growing up. So, like, I was a part of that world in some way. You know, I don't know. It feels a bit like full circle. It is frustrating in a way, but we try and just embrace it. And because it is just a necessary evil, like, might as well try and do it as best as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the best way to go about it, because at least at the very end, like, you still feel good about what you're putting out there, whether it's just a social media piece or whether it's, you know, your music in general. I think that's probably the best way to do it. At least you're staying true to yourself, and that at least feels good at the end of the day.
Yeah, how do you feel about it? Because I mean, I feel like your whole thing is like based on social media. Like, do you find it stressful? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, it gets stressful for sure. I think I go through like ebbs and flows of feeling certain ways about it. More so recently, I've been settling into like just feeling comfortable with what I share and what, you know, I kind of like, and it's easy to get lost in the space of like trying to chase views and likes and all that fun stuff. But I'm really trying to take a step back and just like share what I like, share what feels good to me, and what happens kind of after that. It's a little easier when you kind of sit with like a decent following like I have, but yeah, it's hard. It's ebbs and flows, and there's times where like one bad comment will make me feel really awful, and then there's a million good ones and I don't see those. But
yeah, man, it's the hardest thing I find is like I wish that I could just like make the post and send it off and just not care, But like when I post that thing, my brain is like I'm just like how many likes, how many comments, and we literally go and we reply to we don't get like that many comments, so it's not like unrealistic for us to reply to every comment, so we do that, but it just like, man, like I feel like they've just engineered this thing to overtake your brain so effectively that it's sometimes
very easily.
That's definitely a thing that I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I was doing the same thing. I was responding to everybody's comments, talking to every single person, and it gets to be too much. It really does consume the entirety of your time, and then you get like addicted to it, and it's a weird space. It truly is. Like you almost have to build in these breaks. Like I'll in the summer, like I'll take literally like 4 or 5 days and just go where I don't have service, so I can't look at my phone or do anything with it, because it gets overwhelming for everybody. So on top of being musicians, you guys, do the social media, do everything. You have a marriage and a family. How do you balance all that? How does that work?
Man, I've been hearing more and more people recently say that like work-life balance is a myth, and I think it's true.
Right.
I think, excuse me. I think, it is just, I feel like we're just very, like spontaneous people in general, like we had like when we first moved to New York, like I was a composer for like a year and a half, and that was the only time really I had like a 9-to-5 job. So basically for years now, it's just been like, like we can't even plan 6 months ahead, because we don't know what's happening. So it's just like, we are very spontaneous in that way. Like I think we try and have an element of planning. Like on some level, like at 6 p.m. I try and just like switch everything off and push it away. But then because most of what we do, like most of our business or whatever as a band is in the States, what happens is like most of our meetings are at like 10 p.m. So we'll put the kids to bed and then we'll have, I don't know, like a meeting or an interview or something, because then it's like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. in New York,
Right.
So it can definitely be a challenge, but in many ways, as frustrating as those things can be, like I love that I'm able to live like a spontaneous life, that we get to just do like random things, that we get hired to play a private show in like, I don't know, St. Bart's or something in January, or like just the random crazy things that we've gotten to do in the time of doing this. I think more than makes up for the difficulty of planning.
Yeah. Yes, I think that. Again, it goes back to like being able to do what you enjoy the most. You can kind of make the other stuff work 100%. Live through the chaos a little bit. So in terms of like, you've toured for quite some time. What's like the biggest lesson you've kind of learned while touring? Like what's the big takeaway? If you had one takeaway to somebody who maybe won't ever get to experience that.
I mean, it's a little bit like, like it's a bit like being a parent, like you can't, it's like, I feel like when you tell people who don't have kids what it's like having kids, if you're a certain kind of person, you just are like shit scared. You're like, I'm never going to do that, But you can't sum the thing up in terms of like, it's just all positive or it's all negative. Like there's like, there's positive and negative aspects to this thing, but on a whole, I love it. And I love, all the, like, if I think of all the negative things now, like, that we've been through, like, whether it's a bus breakdown, whether it's, like, you're stopped on the interstate, literally, and there was a murder, and there's like, just crazy shit. Right. Obviously, that's horrible, but I just mean, all the memories in my mind are, like, positive memories, Like, it all kind of, over time, it takes on, like, a rose-tinted quality. It's like, we could have been just sitting on our couch or just having a 9-to-5 job all of that time, but instead we went and we did this touring thing, which was, you know, it's not always like financially positive or good or whatever, but like on a whole, the experiences just has like enriched our lives in such a crazy way. And we got to see like the whole, you know, all sorts of crazy parts of the world, the whole of the US, a whole bunch of Canada as well. And, you know, like I can almost, if someone's like, where should I go out to eat in like St. Louis, Missouri? Like I can probably give them a recommendation, you know? Right. It's like, it's cool to like, I don't know, it's cool to just have a bit of knowledge and to just have your kind of mind filled in, like your mental picture of the world. I don't know, it's definitely, it's good. It's good, it's good and it's bad, but it's mainly good.
Are you able to kind of look back? So I struggle with this particularly. Like, are you able to look back on the successes you've had and kind of feel good about them? Or are you constantly, you know, kind of moving the goalposts forward, so to speak? You have the success in the moment, you like, cool, and then you just immediately are looking forward? Or do you have the ability to kind of sit back and be like, you know, we've done all this, that's really amazing, and feel good about it?
I think it's a bit of both. You know, I think definitely past success can be like a weight on your shoulders in some way, you know, and I think there was a time, you know, if I think of like our first 3 records, like if I think of When the Night, which is like, you know, still, I think When the Night and Matter is still like our most successful records. And, you know, I definitely think there was an element of like, you know, being on a major label, having this kind of success, you know, feeling like we were being painted in one direction, like we were just now like a synth pop band, you know, and to me, I'm like, but I'm not just a synth pop artist. I can like do this and I can do that. And I love like rock and roll and I love electro and I love all these different things. And then in some way, you know, and also being like, we're on a major label. We're not a major label band. We're like a cool band, you know, and just like, there are all these things that you, especially like when you're starting out, that you maybe, there is this element of self-consciousness. There just is. You know, you're just figuring out your place in the world, in the music world. And so I think that, yes, like past success and high expectations can be positive, but it can also kind of like make things like a bit weird in some way. But like, you know, everything we've done, all the music we've put out, I'm super proud of it. Like I wouldn't go back and do it any differently, you know? I think, I don't know. Like I think, like, I feel like we're in the best place we've ever been in terms of how we feel making music. And I feel like the last, like, definitely since Utopia, like, every record we've made is, like completely 100% compromise free and just made from, like, a very positive place. And it feels really good to me, so.
Yeah, and do you guys feel better now being, you know, not necessarily on a major label? Does it feel a little more... I don't know, community like being on a smaller, you know, group, or do you kind of miss the benefits that maybe a major label brought you?
Yeah, I think what you just said is true to a degree. You know, I don't know if it's more community like on, you know, because Nettwerk is like it's like the biggest independent label in the world, right? Which, whatever. But you know, the people at Nettwerk are super nice. You know, I do think, you know, and again, full love to our team at Nettwerk. Like, I'm not trying to say anything bad here or anything, but like, you know, there is, you know, it did feel a bit like when we were on Columbia Records that it was like, oh, the big guns are blazing now, boy. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of feels a bit like, you know, if things are going to go, it's going to go absolutely gangbusters. And there was an element of that. I mean, it never went like totally crazy for us, but I think signing to a major label on the one hand, like suddenly people take notice and there's, you know, everyone wants to be in your team and there's an expectation that you're going to make money and stuff. But then on top of that, you know, all the like independent blogs like hate you because you're a major label band, you know, so I don't know. But I think being on Nettwerk, what has really been amazing about them is they've never interfered with the music. There was never a like, you know, just a, yeah, it felt like, you know, they might make like a suggestion, but it just felt like fully, purely they were behind us making the record we wanted to make. And, you know, obviously there was a budget and whatever, but like we could just do what we wanted and literally submit anything we wanted, you know, and we're always aiming for the highest quality we can and like the best thing that we can. But I think that's what's really been great about Nettwerk. Yeah, and we've obviously made good friends with a lot of the artists that are on the label, and there's a lot of great artists that are there. And
so through all of this, right? How do you guys find yourself able to still kind of stay mentally grounded and kind of in your space? Because it's very easy. I mean, I know for me at least, it's very easy to get lost and very, down one road or the other. What do you guys do? Obviously, the family helps to kind of stay grounded and in yourselves at all times.
Well, I would, I'm first of all like very thankful to have Patti. I think the fact that we've been in a relationship, we had a relationship for almost 10 years before the band even started. And then we went through the whole thing together, and she will like always call me out of my bullshit. She will just she will not hold back. She will just tell me what's up, and we've just always had a very good communication channel. Things haven't always, we haven't just constantly always had a good time in our relationship. We've been through bad moments, I've been an asshole times, she's whatever, done her things, But I think she's just her, she's such a grounded person. I can be a little bit more whatever, airy-fairy up in my head and imagining shit that's not real, but she will call me out of my bullshit. And yeah, and I think also, we've sort of, I feel like we've been through that crazy time. Early on in the sort of St. Lucia time, When the Night Mattered, that was a crazy time where we went from zero to it was crazy, and then we were playing Coachella, Lollapalooza, Bonnaroo, everything, and it was just in your mind, you just start to have these delusions of grandeur that it's always going to be this way, and this state, this kind of the current rate of growth is just going to continue, It's how people are talking about AI right now. It's it's going to just be it's, and you're just okay, guys, I've heard this before, Maybe it's true. I don't know. But, so I think we've been through that, and we've definitely been burned when it maybe didn't turn out that way that it sort of was painted to possibly be in some way. But I think that's good. It's good to be burned that way, and it's good to go and be, in a way, humbled a bit and grounded, and have to go and kind of be well, how much do we really want this? And to have to make those sacrifices to continue to do the thing that you want to do, that you're not just doing because of being backstage at Coachella, or the fame, or the endorsements, or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with so for me it's I've been through, I'm not old per se, but old enough, I guess, trying to pull from experience of you've made it through this before, really helps. 100% helps. You were talking about the festivals you guys have played. What, over the years you've probably played a ton. What's been your favorite festival experience in terms of playing?
I mean, there's a couple sets that really stick out in my mind, and it's not necessarily to do with the festival itself, but we did this one. We did a late night set on. There was Treasure Island Festival in San Francisco that we just did this late night festival that was it was pretty much just before the headliners. I can't remember who the headliners were, but that was an amazing set. And then we did Firefly one year, and we were after the headliners, and so people were just absolutely going off their shit. It was the most insane energy. But festivals are just, there's always, we love playing festivals. I feel like we just really thrive at festivals, because there's just something about, you can't be precious about, you can't be precious about your shit. You just got to, you just go, something is always wrong, and you're just I've done a couple of festival sets with no ears, these are my ears, where I'm just yeah, well, they're not working, so just fuck it, throw them away, and you just kind of go for it, and but it's something about that mindset. And when everyone around you's in that mindset, and it's that feeling, is freeing. Sometimes at your own shows, you're just so particular and precious, and everything's got to be right and stuff, and you can get into your head a little bit. But sometimes at festivals, it has a bit more of a freeing thing, and sometimes it can be frustrating because you feel like you're not putting your best foot forward. But it's a little bit more improvisation,
Yeah. That's my favorite part about festivals is I get the ability to kind of go where I want and see, just random acts and find new music. That's my favorite part. For you, so for you, what is in your entire catalog, maybe not the most popular song, but like the song you're most proud of. You put it out and you feel so good about it.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk about our new record. Just because, I mean, you know, there's many songs I'm really. I mean, I'm very, very proud of Elevate. I have to say, like Elevate, you know, which is one of our biggest songs. You know, I feel like, in a way, it was like the perfect mission statement of St. Lucia. It was just everything. It's this like vibrant, joyful, but also like slightly melancholy pop song that feels like retro or whatever. But then I'm super proud of the song Going to Space of our new record, which is like an 8.5 minute, like just, you know, why would you do that? And, you know, it's just, I don't know, like I just feel like we really went to the absolute maximum extreme of ill-advised career moves. You know, it's just like, you know, we actually really wanted to release it as one of the singles, but our label was just like, no. This was like the one time where Nettwerk was like, no, guys, no one will playlist this. Not that anyone's playlisting shit anyway, but like, you know, but I'm really proud of it because I feel like it's different for us, and I just feel like, you know, that song was a bit of like a fight, you know, and I don't know. I feel really good about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, 8.5 minute singles might be pushing it a little bit.
Bohemian Rhapsody, man, come on! Like
that's fair.
I feel like in some way, like people, it feels to me like people are responding more to that kind of stuff, though. You know what I mean? Like it just feels to me like people are sick of like, I mean, everything's so different. Like you could say anything and it would be true, you know. But like it feels like people are kind of, again, I go back to the Joe record, you know, like all the twists and turns and stuff on that. This is why, like, I love that record and I have so much respect for what that guy's doing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, kind of transitioning into that. What's maybe Joe, but a song or artist that, you know, you just literally have been, you know, loving lately?
Well, I will open up my Spotify because I'm just like, my brain just doesn't work on this level. Yeah, I mean, that Joe record is beautiful. I've been loving the new songs Ali and AJ have been putting out. I mean, they're on our record. They have a song with us. You know, they worked with Jonathan Wilson. I don't know if you know who that is, but yeah, Jonathan Wilson on their new record. And it's like, you know, he played all the instruments, all like done to tape. It's beautiful. The new Knox record is super cool. And like Ross, who plays in our band, is kind of co-wrote and played over a whole bunch of that record. So in many ways it is like kind of, I mean, they've always been in a way like an extension of St. Lucia. Like we have a whole bunch of songs with them. They do remixes for us. Like we're kind of family. But I think this is some of the best music they've put out, and it's like the first time they've only worked with one singer. It's this girl, Dragonette. And they had a song with her on their last record called Slow Song, which was one of my favorite songs in the last like 10 years. And it's all kind of like in that kind of retro. It all kind of feels like an old song you could overhear at like a supermarket or something in the 80s.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, two artists you mentioned there that I haven't listened to a ton of, so I'm excited myself as a person who listens to a ton of music to find those guys. I guess kind of wrapping up, what's next for you guys? What's on the horizon for St. Lucia? So
we're currently I don't know when this is coming out, but we're announcing it soon. So basically, Fata Morgana Dawn is part of a double album project, and so we're going to be releasing the first single from Fata Morgana, Dusk, in the middle of May, and Dusk is like it's Jekyll and Hyde in a way, the two records. You know, like Dawn is like a bit more of like it's like I was saying, like kind of a psychedelic pop, slightly more experimental record, and Dusk is like a kind of pure pop dance record kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And then we're currently planning a tour, which is kind of difficult because our drummer is having a baby in August, which is like when we were planning on touring. And so now like we've had to like just move things around a whole bunch. And our keyboard player plays with Kali Uchis, and she's like touring a bunch. So we're just figuring out when we're going to be touring. Right now it's looking either like the end of this year or the early next year. Okay. Yeah, and then I mean, you know, we're always working on a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of music on the horizon, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, man. Well, I again appreciate you taking the time out of your early evening and taking some time to talk with me, and can't wait to see what's coming up for you guys.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me on. This was awesome. Thanks for like asking so many good questions and
appreciate you.
Yes.